You know it's funny how life can twist and turn, taking you from the depths of despair to heights you never dreamed possible. I remember a time when I was just a waitress, not just any waitress though, but one in a lavish restaurant where the rich dined while their sins simmered beneath the surface. I spent long hours serving cocktails and pretend smiles, all the while feeling like a ghost, invisible to the world around me. People passed me by, judging me by my apron, unaware of the fire burning inside me. I looked at those glittering chandeliers and heard the clinking of fine china, and I thought this isn't for someone like me. I watched as my colleagues turned a blind eye to the whispers of corruption filling the air, convincing ourselves that this was just the way things were. After my mum passed, I held on to her memory, her sacrifices, and her quiet strength as a guiding light. But fear wrapped around me like a heavy cloak, the kind that stifles courage and keeps you rooted in place. Yet something inside me shifted. I began to realize that justice didn't just live in the hearts of heroes. It lived in the gritty day-to-day battles, in the hearts of people like me, people who dared to dream about a better future while facing a world so heavily stacked against them. I didn't just want to survive anymore. I wanted to rise, to stand up against the very darkness I was serving, and somehow to challenge the injustice woven into the fabric of that elite society. Little did I know that journey would lead me into the depths of corruption and the fight for justice beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I remember the day it all fell apart, like the walls closing in around me, a vice tightening with every heartbeat. I was just getting off my shift, my mind still on the tables I'd served, and the little moments that reminded me why I was there at all. Then, unexpectedly, I saw them. The Senator Richard Langford and a handful of his cronies huddled in the back corner, their laughter mixing with the clinking of wine glasses. As I approached the table with a forced smile, pretending to be just another waitress, I overheard snippets of their conversation deals being brokered in hushed tones. Slander against anyone who dared to stand in their way. "We'll handle the senator's campaign donations like we always do," Langford said, a glint of malice in his voice. "Anyone who opposes us will regret it." Later that week, as I was stacking plates in the kitchen, he snagged me with a grip on my wrist, his voice low and dangerous. "Maya," he said, his smirk chilling. "How would you like to earn a little extra cash, a bonus for your discretion?" I felt a surge of anger mixed with disbelief. Did he really think that I could be bought? I shot back. "I'm not interested, Mr. Langford." He laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Remember, you're in over your head. There are consequences for crossing me." And just like that, my pulse raced with fear, but more powerful than that was something else, defiance. Dozens of faces flashed before me, my mother's gentle smile, the laughter of kids I'd seen in the streets, hope shimmering in their eyes. Nothing was worth the price of my integrity, but as I stood there against his threat, I knew I was stepping onto a dangerous path. I had chosen my battle, but the war was about to heat up, and this was just the beginning. You know, at first it felt like a game. I mean, how hard could it be to gather some dirt on Richard Langford? I thought I was playing chess while they were still figuring out checkers. But let me tell you, the stakes were higher than a high roller in a Vegas casino, and soon enough I found myself up against walls I didn't even know were there. Every step forward was met with 2 steps back, a perfect dance routine I never signed up for. I'd gather a snippet of conversation, and just as I was starting to feel like a badass, Langford would turn up the heat. There I was trying to juggle napkins like they were my secret recording devices, while he was looming behind the bar, eyeing me like I was a two-star dish he couldn't quite place. The guy had his bad vibes perfected down to an art. I remember one night standing in the restroom clutching my phone like it was the Holy Grail, and lo and behold, in walks Langford talk about a nightmare. He leaned in, breath heavy like he had just gargled with gravel, and said, "You're playing a dangerous game, sweetheart." I fought the urge to retort with the classic, "I'm not your sweetheart," but I froze. Pray for me. Right. But then there was Daniel, my husband, charging in like a knight in shining armour. Let's just say he turned my just trying to survive the evening into a full-blown dramatic showdown. The public most thought I was just a waitress with a wild imagination. Hey, I wanted to slap a few labels on those doubters, call them undercover critics. But then, in those tiny moments, like a glimmer of light through a heavy storm cloud, my resolve only strengthened. They didn't see me, but I was building my own storm, and it was about to unleash. Trying to make sense of my path while dodging daggers was exhausting. But as long as grit was in my corner, there was no way I'd go quietly. Not now, not ever. It felt like all the walls were closing in. Maya stood frozen in that restroom, her heart pounding like a war drum. The echoes of Langford's threats still rang in her ears. Do you really think you can play games with me? That question hung heavy, a weight that threatened to crush her spirit. For a moment she doubted everything, her courage, her resolve. The lives she sought to protect blurred behind the fear. But then something shifted. In the stillness, a memory flashed, her mother's voice, fierce yet tender. Never let them silence you, Maya. You are stronger than you know. Tears pooled in her eyes, but they weren't tears of defeat. They ignited a fire within her. What if she embraced the risk? What if she fought back? With a deep breath, she gripped her phone tighter, the recording still running. The truth coursed through her veins, and in that small act, this simple choice, she forged a different path. No longer just a waitress, she was a witness, an agent of change. The frantic whispers of doubt transformed into a steady roar of determination. Pieces fell into place. The evidence she had, the conversations she'd collected, each one a thread weaving her destiny. She wasn't alone. Daniel was out there fighting a battle of his own. And in that realization, she touched a wellspring of strength. Maya visualized the FBI team rallying agents who believed, who fought for justice. She was part of that family now. With each passing second, her desperation shifted to clarity, and clarity became purpose. Light began to break a pinprick that widened. "I'm coming for you, Langford," she whispered, not just to herself, but to the corrupt force that threatened everything. In that moment, brokenness transformed. Maya wasn't just surviving anymore. She was becoming unstoppable. As the sun dipped below the skyline, casting a warm, golden hue over the city, Maya stood in the bustling boardroom. Silence enveloping the room after her news had been revealed. The walls adorned with imposing portraits of wealthy elite now bore witness to a new reality. In front of her, the team of federal agents reviewed the damning evidence. She had painstakingly gathered phone records, detailed transcripts, and the irrefutable audio of Richard Langford's illicit dealings. Today was the day justice would be served. Maya felt her heart race as the lead agent assured her, "We're going in." She could hardly believe it. Weeks of gathering intel nights spent in fear and relentless determination had brought her to this moment. It was a stark contrast to the chaos that reigned mere months ago, when she had been just another invisible face in a dimly lit restaurant. A single phone call would change everything. As the agents mobilized, her heart swelled with a quiet satisfaction, a shy smile creeping across her lips, hinting at the depths of her triumph, without need for braggadocio. She was ready, looking at this moment not just as a revenge against those who wronged her, but as an illuminating beacon for others lost in the shadows. Hours later, amid the flash of cameras and the buzz of reporters clamoring for a statement, a headline broke through the airwaves. "Local hero exposes corruption, captures notorious criminal." In that moment, the world knew her name, but deep down, Maya understood this victory didn't erase the scars left behind. Instead, it made each one a badge of honor. She had fought not just for herself, but for every soul silenced by the systems of power. As she left the fray of flashing lights, there was no arrogance in her stance, only the weight of purpose and the quiet determination to keep fighting for those who still needed her. As I sit here reflecting on Maya's journey, it feels surreal to trace the path from that timid waitress to a force that challenged the very foundations of power and corruption. She learned, often through pain and sacrifice, that power can corrupt, yes, but it can also be wielded as a weapon for change. Trust in the end was a double-edged sword. She had to navigate a world where betrayal lurked behind every corner, where sometimes even those closest to us become unwitting players in a game far larger than themselves. But perhaps the most pertinent lesson Maya encountered was that the thirst for revenge can blur the lines of justice. Was her quest for retribution truly about righting wrongs? Or was it simply a response to the anguish she experienced? We often romanticize revenge as a form of justice. But is it righteous? Or does it merely perpetuate a cycle of violence and retribution? As we close this chapter of Maya's story, I invite you to consider: is seeking revenge the same as serving justice? Can we ever truly put an end to the cycle of power and corruption? Or does it exist as a part of the human condition? What side do you fall on? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's engage in a dialogue about the choices we make when confronted with injustice, and what it means to truly seek to change the world around us. Remember, sometimes the most powerful act of change begins not with rage, but with the pen of someone willing to confront the truth. In the end, it's in our hands to choose whether to be agents of change or victims of the status quo.